Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. Before talking about the game, it was nice, Alasdair, to catch up with our listener before Lazio Juventus. It's fun every time to see our listeners and welcome them in Rome. Don't know if they enjoy the game though, because unfortunately, this is the Lazio in 2025, especially at home. We've been dreadful at home, but it was good to catch up with Yepe, with Joy. And again, as I mentioned in pretty much every podcast, if you're planning to come to Rome and watch a Lazio game, get in touch and we can meet at Ponte Milvio before the game. And it's always a pleasure for us. Thanks, obviously, to all our Patreon. Your support is massive, and you can go to patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month. And Alasdair, we said this was a final, right? Lazio needed to win against Juventus, and as always, we got a draw. So wasn't good enough.
Yeah, I mean, you're right to mention like the day out. It was a lovely day out. Beautiful weather, sunshine, 6:00 kickoff. So got a great time to be alive in general. Before the match, I made the mistake of saying to all of you that I woke up feeling confident this morning, which I'm amazed you didn't lead on in your introduction today. But I mean, silly me, because it was just, copy and paste Lazio performance, play like complete crap for 75 minutes, and then desperately try and claw something out of the game right at the end. Successfully, again, like against Parma, it doesn't really matter because, getting a draw, no matter how exciting it is, no matter how much adrenaline you get from the late equalizer, is ultimately not the result that you want. And if you're not going to play for 3/4 of every match, you're not going to get fourth in the table and into the Champions League. And sadly, Vittorio, I don't know if you agree, but I think it is finished, regardless of what happens against Roma tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the result of tonight, we are recording before Atalanta-Roma, if people were listening on Tuesday, etc. The results of tonight, it's pretty much interesting only Juventus, right? If Roma doesn't win, I think Juventus will reach the Champions League, the fourth spot. They have a better fixture, and I think that's going to happen. The thing, Alasdair, is now with this draw, we have to see if we get in the Europa League, because at the moment, that's our main focus, right? With the draw against Juventus, even if we finish same points with Juve, they're ahead of us because they won the home game, they have a better goal difference, etc. Even if we finish same points with Roma, it's the same situation. So there's a huge risk that we're gonna finish not only out of the Champions League but out of the Europa League. And there have been a lot of discussion, Alasdair, because no one at the beginning expected to see Lazio fighting for the Champions League at the start of the season. But the first 6 months were so good that, people were thinking, hey, we're going to get there. The last 6 have been terrible, especially home game. In 2025, we won just one home game. This is not acceptable, Alasdair, right? And yes, Saturday was a final. Beating Juventus would mean you still had chances. But let's be honest, Lazio didn't waste their opportunity against Juventus. We drew against Parma at home, Udinese at home, Como. That's where you lost points that make the difference, right?
Yeah, exactly. 6 draws in a row now at home. I mean, even the game we won that you mentioned, that was against Monza, so does it even count? I'm not sure. I mean, it's crazy when you look at that form book, and it's since November we've had 1 win in Serie A. That is how long this run has been. And it's true you're not losing games, but it doesn't, like I was saying, it doesn't matter if you're not losing games, because there are plenty of games in there that you have to be winning. And obviously that, like I think you're right to point out, we didn't go into the season expecting Champions League football, but I think if you get off to the good start, if if you overachieve in terms of your own expectations by midway through the season, the European run, all the rest of it, you gotta pounce on the opportunity that you've got in front of you. And I think especially after going out of the Europa League, that was a real chance for Lazio to be like, right, okay, we need to focus in, we need to address the issues we've got in this team, address these goals we keep conceding. We need to find slightly more craft and attack in the final third to be able to create openings more regularly. And the frustrating thing for me is just that Lazio have continued playing pretty much exactly the same way this whole time. Baroni's not really done anything differently other than that experiment of playing Marisic as a winger a couple of times. We've not really seen anything other than the usual look tired, lack of intensity, start the first half badly, start the second half badly, concede the same goal from the byline over and over again. Happened again against Juventus, and then bring on the subs for the final 15 minutes and hope for the best. It's just I think that's why I'm frustrated with this more than anything, is that it's not really been addressed, that things that we've been talking about over and over again for months, and that seemingly there are problems with this squad. There are certain things Baroni isn't responsible for. He hasn't built this team by himself, but I think there's certainly different ways he could have gone about this to put us in a better position than we currently are, because with the head-to-head going Juve's way, head-to-head lost against Roma as well, we need almost a miracle now.
Yeah, and Alasdair, you mentioned it. Again, first half, average, I would say. Lazio didn't play that bad, played at the same level of Juventus. The first 10 minutes of the second half, Lazio didn't show up. And what happened? Juventus scored immediately. This is not the first time. We are half of May, and we still haven't found a solution. Hila, after the game, said, well, this is something that happened every time, and we don't understand why. This is terrible to read, right? At the end of the season, still we didn't find any solution. And let's be honest, Saturday, he played Dele Bashiru. That was a huge surprise instead of Dia. I thought Dele Bashiru and Isaacson had a terrible first half. I was at the stadium talking with friends and said, well, now he's taking off immediately, Dele Bashiru and Isaacson, and playing Pedro and Dia, right? This is something I don't understand. We saw Tudor immediately taking off Nico Gonzalez, who didn't play well at all, and bringing in Francisco Conceição. Why does Baroni wait every time to concede a goal and then make a change? We were down 1-0. If you put Dia and Pedro before they score, maybe we will be talking about Lazio winning the game and talking about Champions League hopes, etc. Right? It's not the first time, even in the derby, the one we drew, Baroni waited Roma to score and then made the subs that changed the game again, right?
Yeah, well, firstly, I don't really agree about Dele Bashiru. I think criticisms of him are actually a bit harsh. I thought he was in a really poor first half, quality-wise, from both teams. He was the only Lazio player who managed to find the space to create a chance early on. He was putting in a big shift defensively to try and get back and help the team there. He was actually getting on the ball in the opposition half and trying to link things together. It didn't always work out perfectly, but I think he was actually one of the only Lazio players doing anything in that first half, because the thing I could not understand was why they just kept pumping the ball along. And Isaacson came in for a lot of criticisms before he was hooked. But what do you expect if you're just pumping the ball from your own box into the Juve half when they got 5 defenders, and you're asking Isaacson to win it in the air and then take on 2 defenders by himself? I thought the strategy was just baffling. I could not understand it. Lazio didn't create anything in that first half, and that's not just Isaacson's fault. That's the way the team was being set up to attack, which was basically hit and hope. That seemed to be the strategy. So I don't think either of them had incredible games, but I think it would be harsh to try and kind of blame Lazio's lack of attacking edge in that first half just on their individual performances. I think the whole approach is wrong. Like I said to you before we came on air, I think this is such a poor Juventus team that you've got to have a bit more bravery against them at home with 60,000 fans there. This is your playoff match. This is your opportunity to take hold of this fourth place. Like I said in the preview last week, this is a game that they should be relishing, that they should be like really excited to be competing in rather than nervous about, because it's a real opportunity to take your fate into your own hands. And they didn't want to do that. They were not going out there to be the protagonists, to be the ones who are making the game on their terms. You make a good point, which is that the only thing that woke them up from that was conceding a goal. But what do we know about Lazio this season, Vittorio? It's that they will always concede a goal. Like we're not going to keep a clean sheet in this match. We never were. So what's the point in trying to do this soak it up, pump the ball long approach? Because you can't soak it up like against anyone. So I just think the approach to this match was all wrong. And like you say, why do you wait that long to make changes? Well, probably because he, for some reason, was seeing something that we weren't seeing about the way the game was unfolding. And ultimately, it's only the red cards that gives Lazio a lifeline into this game. Without that red cards, I don't think there would have been anything other than a defeat, maybe even a more comfortable defeat, because Lazio just, for me, they just didn't show up. And this mad rush at the end doesn't make up for that, because that isn't really a game plan. That's just chucking everyone on and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I thought bringing on Pedro changed a little bit the game, but I mean, if you don't dominate this Juventus, that is one of the worst of the last 10 years, you're never gonna win against another Juventus team, right? And let's be honest, Di Gregorio makes probably 2 saves in all the game, right? The one that deflects on the post of Dia, and another header that was easy. And you were 1 man up for, what was it, 30 minutes? So it's really concerning. And I mentioned Isaacsen, but even Zaccagni didn't do nothing on Saturday. And it's not the first game. It's more than 2 months that Zaccagni doesn't appear in the score sheet. Not only goals, but even assists. I thought Guendouzi was knackered. And I was surprised to see Rovella coming off instead of Guendouzi. I don't know. It looks to me that Baroni don't know what to do. Saturday we played, I don't know why, long balls that we hardly did all season long. Why don't we try to play as we did at the beginning of the season, short pass, quick ones, and try to create something? We don't have Milinkovic.
Transition.
We don't have Milinkovic Savic that you say, I'm going to put a long ball and Sergej is going to come down with the ball and we're going to create something. So I was a little bit surprised. And, I was also surprised watching Juventus struggling so much. Yeah, you're 1 man down, but let's not forget that 7 days ago, Empoli scored a goal against us with 1 man down. Then was disallowed for offside. You can play football even if you're 10 against 11. Juventus didn't. That was embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly that. I think the approach was just all off. I think it says a lot about this team when you're talking about Guendouzi looking tired. I thought Pellegrini again looked like he's just not fit enough to play a 90-minute game. Perhaps the most damning thing at the moment is that the only player seemingly capable of bringing energy onto the pitch is the oldest player in the team, which is Pedro. You know what I mean? Like we've got all these attacking players, all these young guys, all these wingers, and the only one who's kind of getting on the ball, buzzing around, trying to find space, trying to get things happening, trying to get shots away onto the goal. They're not always perfect, but he's at least getting something going.
Alasdair, because
and But he's 37 years old. I mean, how is it up to him to provide that energy? I thought Vecino did a little bit too. I think we need to use him more because Guendouzi and Ravella, I said last week, like they're not the same at the moment. We can't. And Ravella, I'm sorry, but getting upset about coming off as well. Like not having a good game and you don't have the energy. So I just think that is clearly a problem, is the energy factor. But there are other players. You don't have to just keep using the same ones.
Yeah, but I mean, Pedro was the only one trying to do something, because I don't remember Zaccagni trying to dribble pass a player, Isaacsen, etc. He was the only one. And Vecino is, I think, the second oldest on the team on Saturday. So, that's another concerning point. But the other thing, Alasdair, is you're losing 1-0, and your attacking mind solution is to take off Marusic and bring in Lazzari. You sign a player this summer for 18 million euros. He didn't come in the pitch in a game you have to win, right? Again, you had 5 substitutions, you made only 4. You have plenty of options. It's not that Zaccagni is playing so well that you say, hey, I cannot take him off. Castellanos was doing something, but, nothing amazing. Again, you decide to not bring on Noslin, Chauna, Ibrahimovic, etc. This squad is average. There are a lot of players who have failed this season. And your best solution is bringing Lazzari, who finally made a decent asset, a decent cross. The last one, I would say. But come on. I mean, if your attacking mind plan is I bring on Lazzari, that was 5 years ago, right? That could be the option. Now Lazzari is struggling against everybody.
Oh, God, his crossing, honestly, just drives everyone insane, I think. I mean, and this is the thing. I think Baroni, for whatever reason, at a certain point around January, February, he made this decision where he's going to stop being the guy who gives everyone a chance. Because the first 6 months, I think that was a huge part of his success, was that in that period, he was using the entire squad. He was rotating all the time, and we were getting great results because everyone was kind of getting good game time, so they had decent minutes in their legs, and they were fit, and they were kind of motivated, because if you're playing, you get a chance to show you game time and all the rest of it. And in that period, everyone was playing. I can't really think of who in the squad, apart from the weird thing with Pellegrini, who wasn't really getting an opportunity. And then all of a sudden we get to this point where it's just kind of like his mind was made up. And Ibrahimovic is obviously the most glaring example of this, but you've got guys, even Toma Basic, Belayan, Prosgard, Ibrahimovic, Noslin Chauna have obviously had time, but it's been ever more reducing as the season goes on. And I think just they should have been used earlier. It's too late now. But I think that you might as well have given all these guys more of an opportunity, because at this point it feels like the risk is too high, to be throwing them into these games, because every game is important. But the risk is only too high because we don't know what they can offer. And he's really missed a trick there for me.
Don't you think that Noslin and Chauna wasted the opportunity in the last couple of months?
They did. Yeah, I do think they did, but I don't think the same can be said for all the January signings.
But for me, this tells me that Baroni didn't want those players, because if Ibrahimovic has played only 90 minutes, and those 90 minutes come from the Coppa Italia game against Inter, when he came in the last, 11 minutes, and we were already 2-0 down, and the other minutes come from Bologna-Lazio, where he came in when we were 5-0 down, it tells me that Baroni doesn't see him, doesn't want him, because it's hard to judge a player who doesn't play, right? So for me, it's clear that he didn't want those players. Belayan should be ready. Come on, I cannot believe that he's a starter, was a starter in Verona, and now he cannot play at Lazio 10 minutes. Come on, that's rubbish. Obviously, for my opinion, he wanted a Fazzini rather than Belayan, a trequartista, someone that can attack rather than defend, what Belayan does. So for me, that's the point. But Alasdair, I want to talk because I thought the game was disappointing, but most disappointing for me was what happened after the game. Baroni said Lazio had a solid performance. That, yeah, we didn't win, but we played a very good game. I mean, for me, Lazio playing a solid game, playing a good game, is if you beat Juventus, if you beat Milan, if you beat Inter, if you draw at the last seconds against Juventus at home, against this Juventus, 11 men against 10, that's not a solid performance. It would have been a good performance if you won, recovering from one down and 1 man up. Not this, right? This is not acceptable from a manager, from a Lazio manager.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could make the argument that Lazio drawing with Juventus is a solid result, but I don't think that really stands up here. I think the one thing you can't do is be a coach whose role is about strategy and selection, and you can't really look at that performance and be happy with it, can you? This is what I was saying at the start, this approach of just pumping the ball away when you don't have players who can hold it up. It didn't make sense and it didn't work, and I don't think we had a single shot on target in the first half. Then the second half starts and you do exactly what you've been doing for ages, which is let a player in down the left-hand side.
Cross the ball.
I swear I'm going to throw my laptop out the windows one of these weeks talking about this. And then he dinks up across to the back post, and lo and behold, they concede the goal. Like, they've conceded again early in the second half, and again, the exact same kind of idea of how you concede a goal for Lazio. So how can you be happy by anything up until that point? And then, like I said before, it's only the red card that lets Lazio back into this game. And even once they have a man advantage, there was no particular idea. It was literally just like throw crosses into the box and throw on as many players forward as possible. And there was no other option but to do that anyway, because all Juventus were doing was defending with 10 men. So I don't know how you can look at that game tactically and say it was a good performance. I just think the whole thing was a mess. The whole thing was a mess. And yeah, the result, you can say a 1-1 draw with Juventus. Absolutely, you can try and make that argument. Like I say, I disagree because I think they had to win this game. But I can understand why you can say 1-1 draw against Juventus is a solid, good result. But you can't look at the performance and say that. I just don't understand it. Like, we've had good performances this season. We know what they look like, and they don't look like that. It wasn't a terrible performance, but it certainly wasn't one you can just try and claim was good.
No, I agree. I mean, yeah, we got a point. We needed 3, by the way, so it's not a waste of time. But I don't think it's gonna be very important for us. I think, as we mentioned at the beginning, Juventus now has a huge opportunity, and I think our hopes are down. And again, after the game, Baroni said, well, now I'm going to finish the season, and then I'm going to talk with the owner, and we're going to make a discussion, etc. That was a little bit weird, Alasdair, because, it looks to be like Baroni's not happy. Is not happy of what he got, what the sport director did in the last month or so, and probably want to raise his voice and get something out of it. Now, I don't think he's gonna resign like Tudor did last season, but I guess he's not happy. And it makes sense because in the last couple of months, Fabiani said he was disappointed because the new signing in January didn't play. Lodido said that we went out in the Europe League against sailor ships. So, it's a clear attack to Baroni and the players, right? So I think Baroni is not happy. He's going to say, hey, these are the players you gave me. You cannot pretend much from me out of that, right?
Yeah, and ultimately, there is still a chance that we finish and I'm still going to say the same thing at the end of the season. If we finish in the top 6, I'll say this was a good season, because considering the squad we came in with, considering what the expectations were at the start, I think that it would be unfair to do anything else. And I think it's unfair to say that Champions League was absolutely everything. But yeah, I think he could have done with a number 10. We see that now. He's had to spend the entire season either with a striker playing there or.
Oops, Alasdair dropped. I don't know what happened, but I can understand this discussion that at the beginning of the season we didn't. We would be happy to be in the Champions League, but the thing is, Milan has been dreadful this season, and so you had the opportunity to take Milan's spot. Fiorentina spent more money than us, but they wasted the money. So, and Fiorentina is below us. So I think when this happens, when Milan is terrible, Juventus is a bad team. Let's be honest. We saw it on Saturday. They were dreadful. Fiorentina spend more money than you, but they're a bad team. Roma started the season dreadful, and now they're above you. So you had a huge opportunity, and you wasted these chances. And this is why this season, for me, if you finish like 6th, 7th, is not that great. It's not a great season, because it's not going to happen a lot of time that Milan, Fiorentina, and Roma are so bad. And you have to take the opportunity, because going back in the Champions League means money. I know people want title, and I get it, but now sport is business. Sport is business. So you have to make money, and you make money in the Champions League. So when you have the opportunity, you have to get it. Because the other thing is that Alasdair, you're nice now. If you don't get to the Champions League, you don't have the money to buy good players. And at the same time, if you get out of the Europe League, then you're going to have to sell players. And this is going to be even worse, because already our team is not great. If you also sell players instead of buying new ones, I mean, next season could be even worse than this one. So I think with Milan playing like that, with the Fiorentina spending all that money, wasting money, with Roma starting with a minus 15, you should have been top 4. So I'm not sure this is a good season if you finish top in the top 6, Alasdair. Especially because you have to add that you went out in the Europe League against Bodo Glimt. I mean, let's not forget about that. They said it was impossible to beat them away. I mean, Tottenham, who is one of the worst team of the season in Premier League, have destroyed them 2-0. Easy peasy, right? Now, I'm not saying we are better than Tottenham, but come on, we didn't do nothing there. So, not sure the season is, to be honest with you, is positive if we finish top 6.
Well, sorry for leaving you momentarily there. My laptop is clearly just had enough of Lazio. Yeah. Well, I know what you mean in terms of where we were to where we are now. It is a different story, and we're not going to get many seasons where as many big teams underachieve as is happening right now. So I do understand that argument, but I still think ultimately 6th would be, pretty solid with a quarterfinal run. I know it was Bodo Glimt, but we did really well in the Europa League up until that point. I don't think we should rewrite history completely. I do think people need to learn from this, because I don't mean to say finishing top 6 would be like, great, let's bounce into next season. I think you do need to be very realistic about what the problems are within this squad, what the faults are, what areas need strengthened, because I think that's become really apparent, hopefully really, really apparent over the season. I don't know, but a certain part of me does wonder, especially with a squad like this that has been stretched, has been tired, with a coach who's lacking experience certainly in how to manage all of this. I do wonder if, in a certain way, you're almost better off finishing seventh, missing Europe, and having a season to kind of rebuild and like do what Napoli did and go and win the Scudetto.
Yeah. Wasn't this season the rebuild season? Sorry, I thought that was the plan, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, but you know what I mean. When you don't have Europe,
yeah, no, I get it. Even though this means that you won't do the massive turnover you did at the beginning of the season. But I'm going to ask you this because there are a lot of rumors in Rome about Baroni. Do you think if Lazio finish sixth, not fifth, sixth, he's going to be sacked?
I don't think he deserves to be.
That's another
No,
question.
I don't think they can. Yeah, I mean, but I don't think they can. Can they? Like, on what grounds are you sacking him?
Well, they simply say,
finishing
hey,
sixth.
we're going to fire you. That's it. There's not a rule that prohibited them to say that. So, well, because in December you were top four and you were top of the table in Europe League. In May, you are out of everything. You won just one home game. You're out of the Europe League. You're out of the Coppa Italia. And in the last 2 months, you're not been playing great football, right? Away a little bit, but at home, definitely not.
But still taking the top four race to the final 2 weeks, which for Lazio isn't bad, Like I'm not being a huge defender of Baroni, and I spent the first 20 minutes complaining about everything he got wrong against Juventus, but I do think it would be unfair to like write off everything that's happened. It's just that, it's a shame to finish the season feeling like you're on the way down rather than on the way up. That's true for sure. But you would have thought he's got a better idea of how to manage this squad and kind of a better idea of what he needs in this squad for next season and how he can and can't play. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, it obviously also kind of depends on, as we always say, who else is out there. Because if Lazio were to sack Baroni, I think the only way they can, in my mind, kind of be excused for doing that is if there's an absolutely incredible coach they've got lined up to take his place, where they can say, thanks for handling the transition year, but now we've got whoever it is, Conceição, Ancelotti has come to Lazio. Whoever it may be, if they've got some big idea planned and they see Baroni as having kind of helped them get from one coach
what
to
about
the
if
next,
the coach was Maurizio Sarri? Would you switch it? Would you do the change?
I just don't really see the point. No, like, unless he comes in with a whole other idea of why he can be more successful with this squad than the one he left. But this squad is worse than the one he left. And even in that one, he ended up quitting before the end of the season because he couldn't get a tune out of them. So, no, I'm not sure going backwards is necessarily the way forwards.
That's interesting. I would switch for Sarri even now. I mean, I think he's a much better manager, much more experienced. Obviously, I think what didn't work last year was that his head was somewhere else. He had some problems in the family, so that didn't help. Alasdair, we didn't mention something that it's going to be important because, as you were saying, Lazio still have an opportunity. Well, after Napoli draw at home against Genoa, next Sunday, even though the fixture could be changed to Saturday, Lazio is playing away against Inter, and now that game has become fundamental for Inter, because if Inter win, Napoli is playing away against Parma, who is a tricky team, right? So, if Napoli have won yesterday, maybe Inzaghi would have rotated players, etc., for focusing on the Champions League. Now they have an incredible opportunity because if they win, there's a chance that Parma will stop Napoli. They're going to win the Scudetto, and it was pretty much over since before yesterday. So it would be an incredible boost again Lazio very unlucky, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was always against Lazio, the run-in of these fixtures, having to face Juventus and Inter. And to be honest, I think Lazio would be kind of out of it by now anyway, because Juventus have basically got to beat Udinese and Venezia now. Okay, Venezia fighting for their lives like Lazio will be when we play them on the final day. Roma after Atalanta tonight, they'll have Milan and Torino. You know, you would probably take that over Inter. You definitely get that over Inter and Lecce. So it's like I said, I said last week, I thought we needed 9 points realistically to finish fourth. We can still get 7, but it's going to be a huge effort to even get 7. And even then, I just cannot see it being enough, because that would also require both of the other teams making mistakes so that we don't finish level with anyone. Because the moment we finish level with anyone, we're out of it. Yeah. And it's just so damaging how poor we've been in these big games this season that the head-to-heads are all against us.
Yeah, but as well, I mean, it would have been difficult already to beat Inter even if they were out of the title race. Now that they are in, I cannot see it happen, right? I don't think Lazio is going to go to San Siro and beat Inter fighting for the title.
Maybe we can turn around that head-to-head with a nice 7-0 win. What do you think?
Can you imagine that? I mean, that would be terrific. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, Inter have obviously played their kind of second team in the last couple of rounds with this Champions League distraction going on. I don't think they will do that so much against Lazio. There might be a little bit of rotation, and I think they've got a few players who are going to be missing. But they'll recognise the importance of this too, because that'll be the weekend that Napoli are looking at, thinking, this is our moment.
Let's not forget that we're going to have Pellegrini and Zaccagni missing the game. And we mentioned that Zaccagni hasn't been playing great. But with Pellegrini out, we don't have that many options there, right? Maruzic, Isa is going to be back from the suspension. I mean, he didn't play that well, right, against Empoli. Lazzari, and who knows, question mark Nuno Tavares, that was all week long back in the training ground. He's going to be called, etc. He hasn't been called for the Juventus game. This is not a good sign, right? For Nuno Tavares, I'm talking about.
I think we have to hope that Dumfries and Dimarco don't play. I mean, we've been exposed down the side. Our fullbacks bad defending has been exposed all season by everyone, but by nobody more than by Inter. It wasn't a coincidence that it was Inter who beat us 6-0 with almost every goal coming from the wing backs. And Dimarco and Dumfries are obviously far more dangerous in an attacking sense than Augusto and Darmian are. So, although they'll probably play Zalewski there, and then he'll bloody score, won't he? Because
yesterday he scored an unbelievable goal, but he played center.
Yeah,
he played in the.
Yeah, he was
incredible.
Yeah.
And again, Alasdair, this is the thing that annoys me. As you mentioned, it wasn't only Inter who exposed us there, right? It's all season long. Now, I know that you don't have Paolo Maldini or Beppe Favalli, but find some solution, right? Find an arrangement to avoid to be exposed like that. Simone Inzaghi yesterday didn't have that many players. He put Zalewski in the middle and worked out pretty well, right? Why Baroni doesn't try anything different? I mean, you're trying the same thing and it doesn't work. So why do you insist? I mean, it's not working, right? We are conceding goal against everybody. Good managers are the ones that try to find a solution, right? Even with a poor squad, they try something different.
Yeah. And, last week you said that maybe that was him trying something different, was this idea of having Marasic as a winger to double up. But the problem there is that you're kind of like trying to solve one problem by making another problem even worse, which is that they're really struggling with creativity in that final third. And by playing Marisic as a winger, you're not going to improve your attacking output. So I think it is just a bit of a deficiency within the squad. We just don't have the quality. And I think Marisic was previously Marisic was the fullback we could depend on more defensively, but this season he's not been very good defensively. Lazzari never has been. Tavares never has been.
Pellegrini as well.
Yeah, exactly. So unless you stick with this idea, you move Mario Gila there, bring in big Sami Gigot back into the center, and you try and kind of do this thing that Ancelotti used to do a lot, where you play kind of with a back three on the ball and a back four off the ball. You could do something like that, which he's not seemingly tried to do. But it's too late, isn't it? I mean, you got 2 games to go, so I don't really know. I'd be surprised if he started Gila at right back, but for me, it's kind of like your only hope if against Inter's wing backs is probably trying to do something like that.
Well, we're gonna see, Alasdair. It's gonna be a very important game for us. Well, certain way. We still have to qualify for the Europa League, and it's not gonna be easy. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for our Patreon for your support, and we'll be back Monday after Inter Lazio, heading to the last game of the season, ready for a massive, huge recap of the season. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll be back on Monday and start thinking about the goal of the season, player of the season. I mean, we have a lot of polls coming on at the end of the season. So get prepared, follow us on the social media, and obviously rate and review the podcast. Thank you, guys.